So if everybody like to settle in, we'll go ahead and get this evening started. There's been some introductions already. I'm sure there'll be some more. I'm Robert Walters with the Whatcom Conservation District. And first of all, a great thank you to our gracious hosts, Carol and Tim. Carol, thank you for your patience, your persistence, and your flexibility. I have changed things up on her a few times, and it's been about, what, 8-9 months of missed emails and missed phone calls. We finally got together, got this all organized. And so to our gracious hosts for opening their doors for us, and for all of you for taking the time on what turned out to be a rainbow-filled evening, coming out and joining us. We're going to go through a couple of slideshow tonight. One this will be presented by our friend Nelson from the City of Bellingham. He's going to go over the City Acquisition Property Program. And then I'll come up and do a slideshow presentation over wildfire and wildfire resilience for your community here. And then after that, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So without further ado, Nelson.
Thanks, Robert. All right, thanks everybody. My name is Nelson Lee. I'm with the City of Bellingham, Public Works Department. Like Robert said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Lake Whatcom Land Acquisition and Preservation Program. Yeah, my job title is Natural Resource Field Supervisor. My role with the city, with Public Works, is to supervise the maintenance and the management of the land in the Lake Whatcom Watershed that the city buys for water quality.
So sorry.
So this will be a pretty brief presentation. Cover a few things here. The overview of the Land Acquisition and Preservation Program. I'll talk about a partnership with the Whatcom Conservation District and why we're here tonight. And then I also want to make a plug for kind of a separate but related topic, the Lake Whatcom Forest Management Plan that the city and Whatcom County are working on together to help plan how we use the forest in the Lake Whatcom Watershed going forward. So we have the Lake Whatcom Land Acquisition and Preservation Program. Up on the screen, it's a little tough to tell, but this is a map of all protected property in the Lake Whatcom Watershed. It's a mix of ownerships on there, and all those little blue polygons, that's city-owned property. There's the green Whatcom County parks, protected forest land, and then there's some Whatcom Land Trust protected land in light blue. But yeah, protected property in Lake Whatcom Watershed, important because, as you all I'm sure are aware, the Lake Whatcom is the drinking water source for over 100,000 residents. And as a city, the county, Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District, we're all invested in maintaining, protecting, improving water quality in Lake Whatcom. And we do that in a multitude of different ways. One of them is this Land Acquisition and Preservation Program. So the city, we purchase land, undeveloped property in the Lake Whatcom Watershed to prevent development, because further development in the watershed can kind of put more pressure on our ability to produce clean and safe drinking water. And it's a very cost-effective way of protecting water quality compared to after the fact treatment, where we do have more pollutants and sort of runoff into Lake Whatcom. The cost to treat it in a drinking water filtration intake system is very expensive. So one of the things we do is we buy property to keep it undeveloped, and keeping it undeveloped also means maintaining it for healthy forests. It's healthy forests, healthy clean. So we do a lot of different ways. We do a lot of different things on these properties to improve the forest health, to improve water quality. We do a lot of tree planting. We do a lot of invasive plant control. We do we'll monitor for encroachments to make sure there's not, people driving 4x4 vehicles onto our properties. Um, And another component of all that forest management is wildfire, the element of wildfire and reducing the risk of.
Can I ask the obvious question here?
Yeah.
If that patch of strip of land is above our property, is that seem like?
Yeah, that's right over here. Yeah,
it's a
so
big lot of
it's
space?
really tiny, but yeah, you can kind of see, you lost Creek Lane, it's kind of all around there. Yeah, we call it the North Beaver.
So then this is the county trails?
Yeah, and this is all of that.
Okay, so this is the strip of land.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I should also add that you can access the map on the city's website if you were just to type it into your search engine of choice, City of Bellingham, Lake Whatcom Land Acquisition, or Lake Whatcom, will probably get you there, but this is just a screenshot of a map that we maintain on our website that we update as we buy property. We are consistently buying property and adding to our ownership in the Lake Whatcom Watershed, so visiting our website and our land acquisition page and visiting that map is kind of the single best source to see what we where other people have been.
You note for the very says, city involved watershed properties, we have preserved.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've kind of worded like that because I guess in addition to just acquiring properties, this includes properties where we secure conservation easement on it, so we don't not own it outright, but we just protect the land. And also sometimes people will donate properties to us as well, so it's not all through acquisition, but it's kind of city maintained, city managed. The majority of it is owned by us, but it's kind of showing city managed. Okay. Page. So yeah, like I said, a component of managing these properties is to manage for wildfire risk reduction. So we've partnered with Whatcom Conservation District because they're really have a ton of expertise in outreach and in technical assistance for ways to reduce the risk of wildfire. And Robert will talk a lot about the techniques and the ways they go about and do that, but yeah, providing outreach to our neighbors, to our preserves, and really we're trying to reduce the risk of wildfire in that interface between forested preserves, or city-owned forested preserves and private property. And yeah, Robert will probably talk about the home emission zone. Yep. And all these ways that a homeowner can protect their property. As part of our partnership, when Robert and the Conservation District team assess the property and assess that home emission zone, if that home emission zone includes city property, in addition to Robert and his team giving you all recommendations for how you can improve wildfire risk or reduce wildfire risk on your property, we will also get those recommendations. So when you're in a property that's adjacent to city property, we'll come in and do some fuel reduction and kind of forest management in that home emission zone to help protect our neighbors, but also protect our folks. Okay. But yeah, there's just a couple examples of past home emission zone projects that we had recommended to us from the Conservation District. So yeah, before picture on the left, some after photos on the right. But on the left there, you can see the private property is maintained lawn, a little shed structure, and then those more mature conifer trees and the shrubberies is a city property. So this was an instance where that home emission zone around someone's home expanded into city-owned property. So when we received the report from Whatcom Conservation District on how to reduce the risk of wildfire in this home emission zone, it included us, the city, living up some of those branches from those mature trees. Pruning and hedging down some of the shrubby vegetation. And removing some of the vegetation that was leaning over the structure there. And all of that, as Robert will tell you, helps by kind of reducing ladder fuels, reduces the risk if there were a fire that could spread easily, particularly to structures. So just an example of one of emissions on treatment that we've worked on. I think I've got one more on the next slide. Sorry, the photo quality is not great here, but on the left there, this one happened before I started, so I don't know the exact location.
It's right beside us.
Is it? Okay. Nice. Okay. That's good. Really? That's funny. Okay. Yeah, now he's my supervisor, but Mike Burleston used to do this field component for the city. And yeah, an example of city forested preserve, really densely stocked stand of conifers, a lot of dead, dry branches, and those things can pose a risk for wildfire. There's just a lot of fuel. So the treatment was to do, again, a lot of limbing. You can see in that kind of bottom picture there, a lot of those trees are limbed up, and then removal of some of the smaller diameter, dead, or kind of otherwise defective trees from that city property, disconnecting some ladder fuels, kind of reducing the risk of the more impactful wildfire.
We'll say that it does not look like that.
Really? Yeah, it's ground back in, or
Yeah, and things have fallen down. You can hardly get through the.
yeah, okay, yeah. Really good. Yeah, this was at least a few weeks ago.
And they cut them, but they didn't.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's nice.
Okay. Cool. Next slide.
Exciting.
Cool. Look good there.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, before I let Robert get up here, I just want to plug this Lake Whatcom Forest Management Plan that the city and county are working on. It is a plan. We have a consultant, forest ecologist consultant called Northwest Natural Resource Group, who we're partnering with to help produce this management plan on how the city and the county, for our combined 12,000 acres we have on the Lake Whatcom Watershed, how we can best manage our properties for ourselves and for wildfire protection. And yeah, it'll help us, it'll provide a lot of recommendations for how we manage our forests, which is really exciting. And wanted to just bring it to you all at this point because we'll soon have a draft that will go out to the public. It'll be posted on our engagebellingham.org website, which you can go to and find a link to our Lake Whatcom Forest Management Plan. And there'll be a draft that we're seeking public input on. So you can review it there through that engagebellingham.org website. There'll be an open comment period, and you can input the comment. And we're still incorporating comments into further.
Does that plan include implementation on how, and with that implementation plan, is the city using their own crews, or how does that?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we'll have recommendations for how to treat certain types of forest stands in our preserves. And then, yeah, depending on what's recommended, it is something we do have staff in-house now. It's as of 2 months ago, we have a dedicated crew of 5 who are helping to maintain our preserves in Lake Whatcom Watershed. So if it fits kind of within our scope and our ability, we can handle it in-house. For bigger larger acreage or more technical, projects, we, could do like a big tree thing. We wanted to thin large stand of really densely stocked trees. We would go through basically the same process as people do for timber harvesting. So submitting an application to the state to for a forest practice application and yeah, like loggers or contractors will bid on a project, so they come in, they'll do the filming and get the first set of it. Yeah, so, yeah, I encourage you to check that out. It's really exciting and it's gonna be a good step forward in how we manage our city properties and county properties and all that. So, that's all I've got. I've got business cards up here on the table and, questions. Stay to the end or take some questions now. If anyone has questions now, I can answer that. If not, we can chat a little bit.
I guess I kind of wonder what the program is. When we moved in here 14 years ago, they came, and when you guys bought that office, they came out and they said, this is a really unhealthy place. Do something. So maybe was it 8 years ago, 6 years ago, when they did this? They came out, yeah, they did the assessment. Yeah, they came out and they did all that. And then they left it, and then they came out maybe a couple years ago and said, they put all these tapes around saying timber harvest. And so we thought they were coming back to clean up it more again, but we haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
And, when they did do that initial thing, they just dropped everything, like they cut everything down, just dropped it, and so it's just, it looks like a bonfire situation, just, all stacked up, ready to like that.
Yeah.
So are they doing anything? What's the plan?
There's some large timber.
Huge,
Yeah.
like huge trees.
Yeah, there's kind of, yeah, I can speak to that like timber harvest flagging. Yeah, so this is, kind of another ongoing project that we have planned for this preserve, kind of the forest up above this neighborhood here. We are working on having some trees thinned kind of up in the higher parts of the preserve, adjacent to kind of in the area that's more immediately adjacent to the Galbraith mountain bike trail system up there. Yeah, I believe that started a few years ago, and a forester came out and sort of surveyed the preserve and the stand. I think that's when those initial flagging went up, because they're looking that this is kind of a first extensive big deal project out here. So it's still in the works, and it wouldn't happen at this point until next summer, because for any of this kind of more intensive forest management, we want to do it within the Lake Whatcom Watershed ground disturbance window in the summer there. So yeah, it's a possibility for next summer that we do have. We'll have to have submitted an application to the state to be on for review. They'll review our plan, our 10-year plan, and there's a lot of criteria that we do to make sure that it's not affecting water quality or fish-bearing streams or unstable slopes and things like that. And then if they approve our plan, it would go to, a lot of these would bid on this one, so I'm still considering this as well.
So there's submitting an application.
Yeah, we're working on that as a city to submit the application, and the goal is for next summer. So that's where it's coming in.
It sounds like what you're saying is involved thinning the trees and taking trees down, but isn't it the fire prevention more than thinning all the debris that's already thin?
Yeah, well, yeah, they will, the trees take down, they'll haul out as well. So that act of thinning, that really doesn't stand the trees and allowing a better, a more more diverse mix of species to sort of establish in that area will, improve wildfire risk reduction up there. So they'll be calling potentially other than. Yeah, I think for this project, the logging company will be long that, they'll want to go with it.
And
A lot of times,
Rather than just following.
for the last 3 or 4 years, with these permits that DNR issues, every now and then they'll actually tell you, leave this many logs per acre on the ground for habitat. They'll go out and mark a dead snag standing for habitat, leave that, so. Yes, management directives and goals have changed since that whole project probably started, on the state level, sure.
You guys did behind our house, last summer, and the city of Bellingham, and it was awesome, but it seems intuitive that like, once it goes down, it gets kind of rotten, it's not necessarily like tin.
Yeah.
I mean, the trees that are down, and you guys even like, it's been tempting for me to like roll them in my yard and chop them up,
Yeah,
take a split or two, like, yeah, you guys got me the 15-inch, left them all there. And I was kind of like, what's going on, but they seem wet. They don't
Yeah.
really seem like they're gonna catch on fire, they're like rock.
That's right.
You go
Oh,
right
yeah.
ahead.
These are like 30 foot, 20 foot, 10.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
but thank you for mentioning that. That is a strategy. It's, if you were to be standing or trying to get the wood like on the ground, so and cutting it up in smaller pieces just to speed up that decomposition process and.
And that's what we've done with bunch of the branches of Lester's two minutes, they decomposing.
Yeah.
We use that. And then part of it, you get a lot of new growth, modified ferns, which is what you want. And now you get some sun in there, everything's coming, it's on that.
Do you still have the, service where they come up and assess it and give us,
Fire risk assessment.
yeah, okay.
It is.
Yeah, that's what I was, so there.
Coming up.
They are real different.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but involved.
Right on.
Cool, yeah, if there are any questions later, feel free to ask me. Yeah, thank you.
Robert, I still in the lake on this side of it. There's a water bubble, on the center.
All right, so my presentation is a little bit longer, and I've done this one a few times, so I'm gonna try to go slower and be more conversational with this. And I'm very much open to, hey, shut up and let me ask you a question. So if you want to interject any point and ask a question, please do. So we're here tonight to talk about wildfire resiliency, but before we get into that, a little background on the Whatcom Conservation District itself. Oh, so you met us already. I'm the guy on the top, and this is Alexis on the couch here. She's our wildfire technician, and she's handling all the technical stuff tonight because I'm 53. So the Whatcom Conservation District, since 1946, has worked with landowners throughout the county to foster a healthy, sustainable relationship between the people and the land. We support the land because the land supports us. Our creed, our motto is healthy land, healthy water, healthy people. There's a very big connection there. And as you drive throughout the county, when you see the blue tubes, if there's more than 50 of them, it's probably one of our projects. Somebody from our farm team, our riparian team, working with landowners to restore those habitats, especially in fish-bearing streams. And then we go out and do conservation planning for farmers. It's free, it's confidential. If you have a tract of land, you're raising baby pigs, baby goats, Icelandic sheep, which are our new favorite animals in the county. You can tell if you haven't seen them. But our farm team goes out and helps people plan for attaining the management goals on their property that they want. And then education outreach, which is part of what we're doing here, place-based learning for people of all ages. We have a crew that goes to the elementary, junior high, and high schools and then we meet with, people who've been a few years out of high school. And then our whole portion of this is climate resiliency and preparedness, by increasing the implementation of wildfire risk reduction practices. And so this is us, our wildfire risk reduction program. It's a program that we built on 4 tenets. Number 1 is empowering landowners by giving you the tools and the resources that you need to improve your wildfire resiliency, access to experts and workshops, which apparently we're experts. They gave us a card that says so. We support communities through wildfire planning, the Firewise USA program, which you've probably all seen a sign outside some neighborhood, and maybe your neighborhood someday that says we are a Firewise community. And that Firewise community sign doesn't mean that it's a neighborhood that did everything they were supposed to get ready for wildfire. It's a sign that says our community recognizes we have a problem and we're working towards fixing it. And then we engage our partners, City of Bellingham, DNR, U.S. Forest Service, Department of Emergency Management, fire marshals, fire districts. When we work together and collaborate the lessons that we've learned, we always get a better outcome. And then finally, to answer the last question, evaluating wildfire risk. This is probably 40 to 50% of our job. Before you leave here tonight, I'm going to offer you a chance to sign up for a free, non-regulatory, no obligation wildfire risk assessment. On the back of our little flyers here are QR codes that you can scan with your phone. That'll take you right to that page on our website that as you sign up for wildfire risk assessment. And that's where we come out and walk around your home with you, and we point out ignition vulnerabilities on your home and your property and offer mitigation solutions for those problems. So for many, many years, we watched wildfire on the news. We watched it down in California. We watched it in Eastern Washington. And then very rarely and occasionally we'd see them here in Western Washington. Well, that is changing dramatically. As you can see by the dates here, we had the Chestnut Mountain Fire 8 years ago. 2 years ago was the South Lake Whatcom Fire. Last year on April 20th, we had the Bender Road Fire right up on the Canadian border. If you tried to go to Winthrop last summer, you had to go the long way because the pass was closed because of the Easy Pass fire. And we still currently have the Perry Fire burning up on Diablo. These rains probably suppress it quite a bit, but we get fires over here every year. These are the ones that make our headlines because they got big. The difference between these fires and other fire starts that we had in the county was wind. We have hundreds of ignition starts every year that never go anywhere because we do live on the wet side of the state and there's no wind to accompany that ignition. And the fire will self-extinguish in the wet ferns and the wet stumps. But if we've had a drought, which we're in year 3 now of drought conditions in Western Washington, we've had Western red cedar dieback. We've got all this dry material on the ground during that August, early September period. And we have somebody's burn pile escapes, or we have a lightning strike, and the wind happens to be blowing on that day. Things get out of control pretty quickly. The Bender Road Fire started as a small burn pile at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. By 6 o'clock in the evening, it was 50 acres going across the community field in April. And so what are these factors that are contributing to the increase in wildfires in Western Washington? Well, the biggest drivers of this are changing conditions in our climate. Increasing air temperatures. Somebody earlier was talking about the heat dome a few years ago. It gets really damn hot here now. Less summer rain. We're like Noah. We go 40 days without rain now, which never used to happen. We used to get those little sprinkles that made us have to mow the lawn that we wanted to in the summer. Those aren't happening anymore. We have less snow most years. We have less snowpack on the mountains, and that snow's coming down earlier, which means that sustained moisture that comes out throughout the year is no longer there. Things dry out quicker. Okay. And these are the conditions that we see. I believe Alexis even took these pictures, or you just off photo somewhere. Okay.
Jenny.
Well, these, evidence of conditions, and you see these in all the trees in our county. You see it drive around. I mentioned the Western red cedar dieback, but when we get overstocked forests and there's trees are competing for the same resources and you're going up resources for so many trees, we start getting dieback. Dead trees or dry trees go up like torches. So. I got some animations. They're gonna try to get fancy, the old man kind of stuff. So now we're just gonna go over some basic fire science and terminology so that when I throw out something, we're kind of hopefully all on the same page. And some of this stuff, most of them already covered. But we're gonna talk about the basic fire triangle. There's three things you need to start a fire. You need that fuel. Fuel's anything that will burn, dry leaves, needles, dead vegetation piles, vehicles, houses, jets, furniture. These things are all combustible, right? Oxygen, 21% of our atmosphere is pretty much always there. You don't have to worry about that one. And then we need a heat source. And whether that's radiant heat, it's flame contact from an existing fire, or it's some embers, some cinders that floated along in the breeze and landed on something real dry. You caught it on fire. Wildfires are typically started due to a combination of dry vegetation, very hot conditions, drop in relative humidity, the temperatures are warm, and then some type of ignition source. And 85% of the time that ignition source comes from heat. We've got escaped burn piles, fireworks, and chains dragging on the roadway. If you saw it on the news back in August, that there was a guy going down I-90 on the other side of the pass, and he started 4 miles worth of fires because the chains on his boat trailer were dragging and sparking. And the grass on the side of the road was so dry, he started 11 types of fire. So, next one, please. And now we'd like doing things in triangles in the wildfire world. Now we've got the factors that influence wildfire. Once that fire is ignited, how is it going to move? How is it going to behave? So again, the main component of this is going to be the fuel. What type of fuel is there? How is it arranged? How much moisture is in that fuel? So the logs that are laying, that are cut up and nice and wet and stuff, that's almost a fire stop. The logs where they just got kind of rip-wrapped and laying there, and then they have branches sticking up in the air that connect to the conifer branches. Well, those are dry. That's a different type of fuel. That's going to behave differently. The weather, again, wind. There has never been, as far as I know, a catastrophic fire event that was not accompanied by a wind event as well. And then topography. For every 10% of slope that you increase going up a hill, the speed the fire travels doubles. Think about it this way, everything ahead of that fire is getting preheated by the fire below it. So it's drier and much easier to combust as it moves up the hill. So while you may be worried about the other side of that hill there, fire burning down, it takes a very significant wind to push fire down the hill. However, embers or cinders from that fire on that side of the hill could be blown this way and start a fire on the bottom of the hill and work its way out, as we'll see here in a minute. So this is understanding wildfire spread. So this ground fire, whether it's started by lightning, escape burn pile, fireworks, whatever it is, they burn along the ground. They get into what we call ladder fuels, those things that connect the ground to the lower branches in the trees. And once it gets up into the crown, then we've got a crown fire, fully engaged crown fire. This is where they start calling helicopters in and getting real nervous. And then the wind takes the needles, the bird's nests, all the stuff in the tops of those trees and starts blowing it ahead of the fire and starting spot fires. It's a continuous fire on the ground. It finds some ladder fuel. It goes up in the tree. The wind blows it. It's a very bad feedback loop here that we get going on that kind of thing. As an example, 2 years ago on the Columbia Gorge, there was a fire on the Oregon side. The Columbia River is 1.5 miles wide at that spot. The wind started blowing northward and it started 6 or 7 fires on the Washington side. So if 1.5 miles wide a river isn't good enough a fire break when it comes to wind and embers, we've got to be really careful about where we let those embers land, right? Ladder fuels, we probably talk about this enough that you're kind of getting the idea, but this is kind of visually what they look like. They're those scrub understory kind of things that do exactly what they say they do. They make a ladder between the ground to the lower branches and palm tree. Embers, again, burning grass, leaves, twigs, pieces of bark, structural debris. Once we have a structure-to-structure fire, which is what we saw in Maui, which we saw in Southern California, those were both wildfires, yes, but they very quickly turn into structure-to-structure fires. The things we build our houses out of, the things we put in our houses burn at a much higher temperature than the trees do. So once the house is engaged, you have embers being blown away from a house that can get very, very involved. Again, it's greater than 80% every year. That number fluctuates, but it's always between like 82 to 87% of structures that are lost during wildfire are ignited from embers. It's not just a wall of flame like in the movies going by and taking everything down. It's that fire somewhere else and the embers landing on something on or near our home that catches it on fire. The embers extend the fire lines, so they're bad things for the firefighters, because they're sitting here fighting this fire here, and all of a sudden the embers are behind them, or way in front of them, and it makes containment kind of hard. And as we gave the Columbia River example, they can be carried by for more than a month. Now, a little bit talking about development. Some crowds, I make them get up and shout the term, woo-wee, because that's the term we use in the wildfire world, woo-wee, W-U-I. It refers to two things. The first one is the wildland urban interface. And this is where we build neighborhoods like this. We go with the bulldozer, we take down all the trees, we put in all the infrastructure in the roads, build houses right up against the trees, so that this community is surrounded by forested lands. Or we have the wildland urban intermix. Should look familiar if you look real close. It's usually outside of the main urban area. It's where we build houses amongst the forested areas. And why do we build our houses amongst the forested areas? Anybody here like trees? Anybody here like walking out their front door, their back deck, and seeing all these beautiful evergreen trees? We do it on purpose, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but with the changing conditions that make wildfire more possible and more susceptible in these areas, we need to make changes with what we do on and near our home. So, this is where you put my animations to keep on pushing the button. What is our biggest threat from wildfire? A huge threatening wall of flame? No. You'll get it with AI. Surprisingly, no. It's the little embers. The accumulation of the little embers that can fly. You gotta hit it like 20 times. It's so good. It's the accumulation of these little embers that land on something again, on or near our home, that ignites, that then catches the structure on fire. Before we start the video, there's two places, one in North Carolina and one in Montana. They're huge 100,000 square foot warehouses. And their job is to build houses and set them on fire to study how and why. I haven't gotten an interview yet, but I have submitted the application a few times because I was a firebug as a kid, and now that older me has wildfire in his title for his job, 8-year-old me is very happy. This is one of those factories in North Carolina. They took this house and they used different building materials on it. They used some vinyl siding, they used fiber cement siding. They have vinyl gutters, they have steel gutters. They have cedar shaped shingles, they have asphalt shingles on one side. And then they have this big thing called the ember generator. And they take twigs and duff and pine needles and cones and they drop them into this big thing that catches them on fire and then blows them at the house like a normal ember storm. There's a little paragraph at the end of this video that a lot of people kind of don't pay attention to. But what it says is that the National Fire Protection Association and the International Association of Fire Chiefs have confirmed the conditions witnessed during this study are identical to what they experienced during a wildfire with all the embers flying through the air and everything. So pay attention to what catches on fire and where it catches on fire. There is some text that's going to pop up in the video. It might be kind of hard to read. I think it's about 4 minutes long, but it's kind of powerful, so I'll just let it run. There's not a lot of audio other than the crackle of the fire. You can see the two different types of roofing. Typical landscaping like you would do to stage any house you wanted to sell or move into. They're laughing, they don't need to burn it down. The timbers are being transmitted with a 10 to 25 minute old. See? Somebody didn't clean their gutters before fire season. And that's the first area that caught on fire. There's another version of Zoom that, it was 13 seconds till the tomatoes in the gutter ignited. It's 2 minutes and 49 seconds till the entire structure is involved. Class A rated asphalt shingle roofs are actually better than mud roofs. They were too low burn rate, no roofs in the. Gutter just melted, and we was just dispersing fire along the ground. The inside corner. Fire creates its own wind and Coriolis effect, and you get a fire man. And it just comes right up in that inside corner and increases the intensity. So the left side where that gutter fell down actually has fiber cement siding. The other side has vinyl siding. So even though this has a lot of fire and flame contact, nothing happens with it soon. No. And I don't expect anyone up here to have vinyl siding, but lap cedar siding, board and back kind of stuff, any kind of wood siding. So the third most successful place in the house and the one is roof, number 2 deck, number 3 is our vents. And our roof system will explain why in a second. Now this one here is just stupid because everybody knows in a fire you close all your windows. But for the sake of the study, they left the window. And this is the paragraph saying that firefighters say, yeah, that's what it's really like. So roof venting, our roofs in our houses are designed to breathe. They pull air in and they push air out. So the vents that we have along our soffits and in our gable ends, they're actually drawing air in. So if you put a candle up there, the candle will flicker towards the house. So in this condition, we have a ventilation system that's pulling air in, and we have embers flying by with the wind, and they get sucked in. A lot of houses built before 2001, the code was to have 1/4-inch screen mesh on open venting. In similar tests, they put cameras inside of an attic, they put 1/4-inch screen mesh here, 1/8-inch screen mesh here. The 1/4-inch screen mesh allows enough embers of significant size into the attic to cause ignition. The 1/8-inch mesh just does not seem to allow enough embers of enough size in to cause ignition. So 1/8-inch mesh is probably fine around here. There's a company started in Australia. They have offices in Spokane called Wildfire Defense Mesh. And that's all they make is this stainless steel mesh that's painted black, so it kind of hides itself. And they go down to 1/16 of it. They sell 1/8 of an inch mesh, but down to 1/16 of an inch. And if you live in California, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, you might consider going that extra step. But so after having watched that house in the movie, we look at this house with fire completely surrounding it. And can this home survive this fire? Well, let's talk about a few things first before we answer that question. We know that the best practice for homeowners to prepare their home for wildfire is to improve their defensible space via improvements in what we call the home ignition zone. And we heard Nelson use that term earlier. The home ignition zone is actually 3 zones that we talk about in our home. The first one is 0 to 5 feet, and this is the most important. That deals with the structure itself, the materials that we have on the structure, the stuff that we store on and underneath our decks, and what we choose to landscape with in that first 5 feet, and we'll replace things. We go up to the intermediate zone, 5 to 30 feet. In that 5 to 30 foot zone, we're talking about landscaping and hardscaping. We don't want a continuity of fuels or what I call a fuse or a chain. We don't want, if fire starts in the ground, we want to keep it on the ground so we can put it out. We don't want it getting up into bushes or other vegetation that has a pathway to the home itself. So we want to put breaks in that vegetation. The example I try to use a lot of times is the old English hedgerows, where they have, the box elders, whatever, that go along and then come right to the corner of the house. If the fire starts somewhere out in that shrubbery, it still has a path to carry it straight to the structure. We want to break that up what we can.
When you guys did an audit of our house, you brought to our attention all the fences dead in into my house. So
Yeah. That's
which was
very class fuse.
yeah, and so we just turned.
Okay.
We don't have lights, any pins to give us.
Yeah.
Good,
So-
it looks pretty. It's nice one too. But
The other recommendation we make is for that last 5 or 6 feet to the house, just make it a metal fence. And that's usually where we have gates anyway, so replacing that one post with a metal post, putting a metal gate on, usually kind of satisfies that. Then we go out 30 to 100 feet. 30 to 100 feet is where we start really talking about those ladder fuels. We start talking about a little bit of canopy space in between our big trees. And again, we just don't want the pathway for fire to get up into the tops of the trees. Became a fully engaged crown fire that then becomes a big danger to everybody in the community and the city. We'll go into these zones a little bit more. So we got some animations here too. So the zone one, the immediate zone, everything here should be non-flammable, right? When I say that, everything, there are exceptions to every rule. You've got a bush that you planted outside this window in memory of grandma. You don't want to rip that bush out. But now we're going to treat that bush like it's a part of the house. And we're going to mitigate 5 feet around that bush and make sure that bush can't catch on fire and be the thing that catches the house. So the first thing we want to do is clear debris around the immediate vicinity of the house. Wood chips and bark mulch are a big no-no. If you ever drove by Home Depot or Lowe's, November, December, you go by the garden department, you see the steam rising off those bags of mulch. That's because they're drying out. There's a decomposition chemical process going on. They're producing heat. So even if you wet them down most of the time, they will eventually dry themselves out if we're not vehemently on top of them maintaining them. The screening vents we talked about, replacing gable vents with 1/8 inch screen on your bird blocking, your rafter blocking. It's impossible to get up in that physical space, so you just staple on from the outside, cover that up. And then making sure our gutters are clean. We all know to clean our gutters this time of year, so when it rains this hard, they run free. But we also want to do it probably in May or June so that there's not a bunch of kindling there to catch on fire. And then we go out to what we call the intermediate zone. We like to call this lean, clean, and green. We don't want anything dead or anything that looks like it might catch on fire in this area. A rule of thumb I tell people is walk around your home with an imaginary book of matches and ask yourself, would I throw a match there? And if the answer is no, let's fix what's there. It's a very simple process, but if you think about it, those matches are embers, right? We don't want to give anything a chance to catch fire. So we want to maintain our lawn well. We want to keep it watered and green. We want to keep the plants vibrant and healthy. We want to keep them pruned. All the dead stuff from underneath our ferns pulled away. We don't want any large vegetation or trees within 10 feet of the house. We don't want those branches touching the house and hanging over the house. Space between trees. It's fine to have all these trees. We don't have to have a moonscape out there, but we want to clump things. We don't want that row of stuff that can carry fire continuously and carry it far. We want to clump stuff so if fire happens to happen in that area, we can put it out. It's not going to have a pathway to catch other things on fire. Using rockeries and other non-combustible landscape as part of our landscape plan, giving a break. In our world, that's a fire break. That's a river. That's a road. That's something that's non-combustible where a ground fire would have to stop. And then finally, the extended zone. This is where we got to 100 feet. And if you live on a hill slope, steep slope, sometimes we'll go out to 200 feet because again, that fire moves more rapidly coming to the hill. We want to get rid of the ladder fuels, the connectivity between the ground and the lower branches and the trees. We want to be aware of embers and how they can go from the ground and instantly become ground fires. And then we've got something that looks like this that's much harder to deal with. And maybe not so much in a community like this where most of you have a few acres or so, but in some communities, or you're right up against our neighbors with the City of Bellingham. That home ignition zone, 100 feet goes onto your neighbor's property. So what I always tell people is you mitigate to your fence line, and then you put on a smile and a handshake across the fence, and you try to get your neighbors to get on board with doing the right thing and the good thing. And by doing that, we get an ignition resistant community. Supposed to be built a little bit. But you can see how these ignition zones can kind of overlap on properties, just based on how they're shaped and how they're developed. So we asked ourselves, can that house survive a wildfire that was completely surrounding it? Well, not only could, but it did. This is a real life story from Black Forest area in Colorado. There are some really close up pictures that get into here, but basically they've got a big driveway in the back that stopped fire from getting to the house. There's more than 8 inches of clearance from the ground to the bottom course of siding. That actually is cedar siding on that house, but they also got concrete out around the house. And then down here, which you can barely see right here, that's a sprinkler. So they had all this wet while the fire was coming up the hill. You can see about where the sprinkler went to. So they did some small things. It's still a beautiful house with beautiful natural landscaping around it, and it survived a pretty high intensity fire. And again, your home doesn't have to look like it belongs on the moon. This is a very fire resilient landscape in a home in Sun Valley that Alexis worked with. We have a list of fire resistant native plants. They're native, so they're drought tolerant. They are meant to be here. And they, because of their structure and components, they are fire resistant. Not fireproof, they just behave better in a fire, so they're better plants to use in that 5 to 30 foot zone.
Where did we find that?
So we have it on our website, and when you all sign up for your home risk assessment, and you get the report from us, on the last page is a page full of clickable resources. One of those resources is that list of native plants. And there's a whole catalog put out by Oregon State University. Go Bees! Guess where I went to school at.
That's why he likes the orange.
So they put out a great pamphlet on fire resistant native plants. So the next steps from your community here, please, I encourage you to have us come out to your house and have a walk around and do the risk assessment. If you've had one done previously, that's fantastic. If you've done some new stuff, you want to just show off, we're happy to come out and see you too. Then we also do neighborhood level risk assessments, and this comes for communities who want to take that step into the Firewise USA. I come out and spend some time looking at the basic components of a community. We write up an assessment of what the community looks like and make recommendations for what the community could do to become better wildfire resilient, and then make an action plan to take those actions. And then finally, we support communities through the Firewise USA and a new program in the state of Washington is called Community Wildfire Ambassadors. Firewise USA can be a little intimidating at first, but once you've done it the first time, it's very easy the second, third, 10th time. After we've done some risk assessments in the community, I will probably be bombarding you all again with emails and trying to see if there's interest in forming a Firewise community here. To be honest with you, this neighborhood would be ideal for Firewise because you're not too many people. You've got the kind of lots where we could come in and give you some recommendations and work can be done. But the primary thing why you should work together as a community is because you have one way in and one way out. And you should all be concerned about that as a community and make sure that you have shaded fuel breaks and that you have a way to get out in case of fire. Next slide. So a portion I like to cover, and sometimes our partners with Division of Emergency Management are here to cover this. They go into a lot more depth. I'm just going to tell you that you should be registered. These two sites, walkandready.org. It used to be called Alert Sense, now it's Connexus. You register for that, so you get, and you tell them, do you want a text, an email, a phone call, or you want all of them, and they'll alert you when there's something going on in your area. It's not just for wildfires, for any natural hazard. The iPod system will automatically dial out the cell tower in the area to hit everybody within that vicinity. So with Alert Sense, if you're in Texas on vacation, something happens here, you're gonna get alerted. With iPods, if you have friends from Texas up here on vacation, they're gonna get alerted because they're in the vicinity. And something that I've been asked to mention by our wildland firefighters, sheriff's deputies and public works employees in yellow vests will be the ones to direct you during evacuation traffic wise. Firefighters are there to fight fire. Oftentimes they get interrupted from doing their job by answering questions they don't know the answer to. They are never looped into that radio headset about how to evacuate. They are looped in on how to stop the fire from approaching our neighborhood. You want to do that one more? this is the messaging that pretty much all of the West Coast has adopted over the last 2 years. It's ready, set, go. It used to be the level 1, level 2, level 3, which, is it, what's DEFCON 5, DEFCON 1, what's the difference? I thought 5 was good, 1 was bad. So now it's just ready, set, go. And what I tell people in a community like this, you have one way in and one way out. When you get to set, you better get going. Don't let them get to the point where they tell you to go. The walkandready.org has a lot of resources. You can connect to them through our website also on preparing a go bag. They have a program called 1 year to 2 weeks, where during a year, every week you do one small thing, and in that year you got a 2-week safety supply, bug out supply kind of thing. Lots of good resources there. Again, not really our expertise, but we're happy to show you information. And then the thank you. Our email addresses, our phone numbers, our cards are all here. Nelson's here. We have the sign up list. We have the brochures with the clickable QR code on the back. And so before you leave, be sure to sign it, take it, anything like that. And thank you all again for coming out. I'm happy to answer any questions or.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, great. Do you think our greatest risk of fire, aside from what Mark said as an individual need, could be a fire coming up over the level or coming from below?
Your greatest risk of fire is going to be coming up the hill from below. But where that ignition source comes from is a big guess, right? I mean, it's very feasible that a fire on the other side starts and embers get blown over here and the fire starts down below and starts coming back down. We talked on Saturday, your property is in pretty good condition. You got a lot of healthy, vibrant green grass and concrete around the structure itself. But I don't know some of your folks' structures, but if we've got those combustible things in that immediate zone, those are the things we want to work on. We always want to start at the front door and work our way out. But yeah, and so let me kind of backtrack and finish by saying this. My job is to scare the hell out of you. I'm supposed to come in here and tell you, tree pretty, fire bad, get rid of fire, Let me calm you down a little bit by telling you, we still live in Western Washington. It's wet over here, okay? And our local response professionals are very, very, very good with it. We've got 60% of the county career and volunteer firefighters are cross-trained, Red Card certified, which means they're certified to fight wildland fire. Wildland fire and structure fire are 2 different animals. You wear different gear, you drive different trucks to fight those fires. We've got a regional DNR crew that's located off Smith Road. We have a helicopter asset permanently stationed at Big Lake. It's 28 minutes to Lake Whatcom from Big Lake in that helicopter. And all the local fire professionals communicate very well, and they know where their areas of concern are based on density and vegetation. And so when we get fires in those areas of concern, there's an immediate and marked response. And so we're very fortunate to live where we live with those kinds of questions.
Or it might be sort of running things.
What's that?
Lightning.
Lightning. So there has been lightning ignitions. The South Lake Whatcom fire was the lightning ignition. The big fire up on the pass this year was lightning ignition.
Because we have a couple trees.
Yeah. So if that tree catches fire, we just don't want it to carry fire to the structure, right? So break that fuse. I think I'm in an age appropriate crowd that I can talk about the Roadrunner and the Coyote, right?
Yeah.
What did the Roadrunner do? Cut that fuse. So that's what we've got to do. And then as far as that immediate zone, I describe it to people, your houses burn just like campfires. If we put a log in the ring and put a cigarette lighter to it, we're not going to get warm from that. We got to put tinder and kindling around that. We like that tinder and kindling, right? Well, the home is the log. Now we got to find that tinder and kindling and get it away, so that when the embers land in it, it doesn't.
Speaking of that, since you guys did the audit, we kind of naively and stupidly put mulch around the crops this summer.
Well,
What, yeah, like, that hasn't really been done. What do you recommend? Is it just box?
Yeah.
It is. Isn't it?
so actually, it's funny you mentioned this because this morning, before we took off on the tour, I opened an email and they actually did a study of which rocks are better during wildfire, and it's river rock because of the rounded edges. Don't know what difference that makes. But So instead of gravel, sharp gravel or 5/8 crushed, something like that, you're saying river rock is better. I don't know, it's rock. Well, so what kind of siding do you have and how far away is that siding from that mulch? What kind of vegetation are you throwing in the mulch?
Cedars, you know, shiplaps, and what it's. You gotta keep.
You can burn it.
Control.
Yeah.
Control bird.
We're trying to start a prescribed burn association in Northwest Washington, just so you know. But there are some parameters, I think one of them is at least a couple inches of.
Really? Can you get away with like a couple of?
Oh, no, I'm joking, it's many feet,
Many.
many
Oh,
feet, you have to figure it out. I think it's actually 100 yards from any structure. For torch prescribed burn.
Was this a connection that, if the community wanted to get like chipper out and people took over the stuff?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that, Tim. So that's another advantage too of the Firewise USA program. The past couple of years, there's been more funding available than there currently is. But DNR every year makes micro grants available to communities. The last couple of years, they've been $4,000 to a community. So let's say you were an organized Firewise community and one of your action items was to build a shaded fuel break around your egress point. You apply for that grant. It's reimbursed grant, so once the community spends that money, you fill out paperwork and they send you $4,000 back. I'll tell you, the project's gonna cost you more than $4,000, but you're gonna get $4,000 of that paid for. There's also other grants that come around, for doing different fuels reduction projects. Something that we've done quite frequently is we will pay for the chipper. Each individual landowner prunes their branches, their vegetation, and makes a pile at the top of their driveway. The DNR wildland firefighting crew, when they're not fighting fires actively, they're mitigating for fire. So we can get their crew at no cost to come around and run that chipper and ship all the material. And then there's options with that material. We can put it in a central location for the community to grab as they need it. We can leave a pile at the top of everybody's driveway, or if that's deemed necessary, we can have it all with it. But that's just kind of like small things that if you're an organized community working towards Firewise, at least, when you make that grant application, you receive favorable status.
Is there any downsides to being revenue?
The only downside of being a Firewise community is you have to have at least that one person in the community that we call a spark plug that has to motivate everybody else. And you all know yourselves, so, you know, and you know other people. So to get people in who already have so much going on in their lives to kind of add something else to it can be a little challenging. And what we find most challenging in these Firewise communities is once that spark plug burns out and leaves, is finding that next person in line with the community. So the continuity of leadership in a Firewise community, I wouldn't say it's a negative, I'd just say it's hard. It's hard. No free lunch. But sometimes we'll throw an apple in for free.
Sun Valley, for example, that whole entire Sun Valley is a fire.
They are not.
No.
We have discussions with them. They use the Firewise signs and, you know, Firewise is actually a copyrighted brand from the National Fire Protection Association. I'm not tattletelling on anybody, and using that emblem is making good things happen in their community. They pay for that shipping themselves. They have their maintenance crew go around and do it, but they make it available to their residents. Something that Sudden Valley has done since we started working with them a little over a year and a half ago is they have changed their HOA ordinances and regulations to allow for more tree removal for wildfire mitigation, as long as it falls within the Lake Whatcom Watershed parameters too. So they have some other, you know, as you all do too, within the watershed, you've got some parameters you have to follow.
All the stuff about getting the ends from people in the first required being fire.
Yeah. Or at least working towards becoming a Firewise community. And if it comes time, I can help you word that application.
And we were talking about the egress out through the gate. What's the issue there?
It's the only way in and out of here.
Yeah, but
So-
what's gonna get by that? What are we trying to do with it?
Well, just, it's actually not too bad right now, but you just don't want a lot of vegetation overgrowing that. If fire is there, I mean, you've seen the cars driving through fire to evacuate, you wanna keep that fire about 30 feet off of the roadway. So reducing vegetation that first 30 feet, getting rid of all the ladder fuels, you know, making it parking it out a little bit in that area so you can see through the understory. To preserve that exit route.
After the Maui scenario, like I've been a little paranoid and, you know, my poor wife is working for but, I'm worried about Sun Valley trying to evacuate, you know, and just the traffic changes going to happen.
So that,
Yeah.